these were people that were such participants in the formation of the very culture they're leaving, that you can't leave that culture without being critiqued by it, right? That's where it really bites you, is that you've created a culture of critique. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vox Podcast. My name is Mike. So glad you are tuning in. Thank you as always for allowing us to be a small part of your life. And I am joined today, for some reason I'm compelled to give clothing updates just because I'm looking at the people we're talking to and I want you to have them in mind as they're speaking. So I'm looking at Tim Stafford. Tim clearly has woken up, has not showered. He's wearing some sort of there's a deep sort of V that has chest hair coming out of it. And I
can
feel
button
like,
it up if it's distracting.
well, I feel like the word Chris Christopherson comes to mind. And I don't know why. Maybe that's a hangover from, 70s music or something, but you just kind of have that Chris Christopherson vibe today.
Christopherson's a sexy beast. I'll take it.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And then, as always, representing the almost separate nation of Texas, we have Bonnie. And Bonnie, just give us a bit of a hair update, if you would.
You know what? I straightened it,
And I don't know.
and it's glorious.
I don't know if people understand. How long does that take?
It didn't, it wasn't too bad because now you have, tools to get it done.
Okay.
So if you do want the drying process as well.
Yes. Give me the whole scenario. So it's.
So I have to shower at night and then it dries, but my hair's so thick it won't dry overnight.
Oh.
So it takes a full 24 hours to dry.
Okay.
Then I use the straightener and that takes another 45 minutes.
Okay. All right.
So that's why it's never straight.
So, well, and yet again, I'm reminded that for many, baldness is a curse, but for others, it's a gift. And
there you go.
So okay, but it looks fantastic.
Well, thank you.
You look like $1 million. And then today we are joined representing. So we've got Northern Cal, we've got Texas, we've got Ohio represented, but we have Southern California in the house. Our very own favorite Andy Laura is here. Andy.
The crowd goes wild.
The crowd goes wild. And Andy, I know you've had you cut your hair off a while ago, but it's the first time I've kind of seen it live.
Oh, okay.
And can you give me the, because I mean, Andy has cool hair regardless, but what's the thought process? At what point did it become like, I think this needs to go?
Lice.
Really? Oh, with children. Wow.
That's a one-word answer.
Okay. And it was, I mean, it wasn't as long as it was before.
No, it absolutely was.
Oh, was it?
It was. Yeah, it just I'd done a better job of actually like getting it cut more frequently to kind of make it right. Before it was just I like barely ever cut it, and so it was just like this metal mane, that just kind
glorious.
Yeah, where this time it all fell right, but the length was actually pretty close. It was about the same. But yeah, the sad thing is Rhodes got lice, and and then actually gave it to all of us.
Well, there's a lot of hair. There's a lot of hair in your family.
There's a lot of hair in the family, so we had to kind of go through that whole process. That's not fun, but it was like the thing we resolved it once, and then it was like 3 months later it came back, and he was going to this preschool. And he's not in that school anymore, and lo and behold, he doesn't have lice. So it's just, it's like, it's obvious it was going around at that school. So anyhow, it was...
And around and around again.
Yeah, so, but now, it was also some of the same reasons I had even cut it before, just because it's with younger kids, and I was bending over a lot, and it was just becoming a problem. And, like Bonnie said, she knows, 24 hours to dry, 45 minutes to straighten, shampoo, conditioner. It's too much. I need less problems in my life right now.
I have so much sympathy for you guys in your hair trouble.
When I saw Andy in person after he had cut his hair, I've already told him this. I don't know what it was. I think I felt a kindredness towards Andy because of my hair. That when he cut it, my gut reaction was this weird, why didn't you tell me?
It's a betrayal.
I felt betrayed. I was like, oh my gosh, you went and did this. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
I think it was the kindred spirit.
Yes. Andy, how are you? Oh, and Andy, by the way, is wearing a T-shirt that says "Sleepless," at least on the top of it.
Yeah,
which is so fitting for him, as he has 3 children under the age of what?
Under the age of 7.
Yep, and 1 more expected in December.
Yep.
So, sleepless is Andy's sort of life motto these days.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
That's it.
But how are you? What are you up to these days?
We just got done from like a summer of a lot of just trips, we did like 2 family camps and a bunch of things. And that was a lot of fun, a lot of really good family time. Kind of coming back from that, I've been home, I guess, for 2.5 weeks and kind of figuring out what life is like next. So I'm not working at Vox Community anymore. We actually transitioned that staff to a fully volunteer staff.
That's amazing.
So it's amazing. I mean, I continue to just be shocked and amazed at how committed that community is to what has come out of this podcast and what kind of came over the course of 2 years of living that out. And so it's absolutely fantastic. So I talk with some of the guys over there pretty frequently and get updates, and it's great. But that being said, I don't know. I got some ideas in the can and trying to figure out which one works and kind of just working on some things, but just freelancing some work right now.
And Andy likes words .com.
Yep,
is the place for all that. So if
that's the place for all that.
If any of our listeners is like, dude, I wonder if Mike knows anybody who could brand, market, produce. I do. His name's Andy, and he is sleepless in San Jose, sleepless in San Joaquin.
He's up anyway.
Sleepless.
He's up anyway.
Right.
Might as well be doing your website.
I'm up anyway. That's right. And I guess we can't go without giving a proper licensing credit to my buddy Evan, who started this company. So that's
nice.
We are sleepless.com if you want to check out these shirts. They are the best.
Oh, nice.
So,
a parenting line.
Yes.
But
it actually kind of is. That's why it's successful.
Perfect.
I'll be honest.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So, dear listener, if you're new to the podcast, Andy and I started this thing almost 4 years ago. And so Andy he started out as a producer, but by the 3rd episode, he was massively co-hosting. And so it's just so fun. But he and I were talking this week about some of these very visible deconversion stories that are happening among some well-known Christians, in recent years, people like Bart Campolo and Frank Schaeffer, children of these very famous sort of evangelical figures have kind of lost their faith. Michael Gungor earlier this year or last year, I don't remember which. And then earlier, I don't know, within the last month or so at the time of this recording, a guy named Josh Harris, who had written a book. He was 21, I think, when he wrote it. And it was about, I know. We gotta, okay, we'll get to that. But I'm not taking marriage and sex advice anymore from anyone under the age of 50. All right? So I just, I'm done. I'm done with that. But he sort of renounced is too strong a word for him. He just doesn't know. But a guy recently named Marty Sampson. Did you guys know who this was? I'm not huge into the Hillsong worship thing.
Yeah, I actually saw him. Yeah, I saw him play at Nokia at the Staples Center, or near the Staples Center, Nokia Theater. Probably 8 years ago.
So this is saying he was part of Hillsong Worship, Hillsong United, Delirious, and Young and Free, right?
Yeah,
Which
Homeboy is
huge.
He's one of the major backbone players of Hillsong. Period.
Okay.
Just in the past, entire legacy of Hillsong.
Okay.
So yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, Hillsong is a church, but it's a movement, and it's very well known for its worship. It's really. I don't know, what would you guys say? It's kind of revolutionized the face of Christian worship in a way that bridges gaps
Or homogenized, whichever word you'd like to use there.
Yeah. So anyway, he put out, and this is what Andy and I were texting back forth on. I'm trying to find. He said, okay. He put on his Instagram post, and I guess it's deleted now. So he said, time for some real talk. I'm genuinely losing my faith, and it doesn't bother me. Like, what bothers me now is nothing. I am so happy now, so at peace with the world. It's crazy. This is a soapbox moment, so here I go. How many preachers fall? Many. No one is talking about it. How many miracles happen? Not many. No one talks about it. Why is the Bible full of contradictions? No one talks about it. How can God be love, yet send 4 billion people to a place all because they don't believe? No one talks about it. Christians can be some of the most judgmental people on the planet. They can also be some of the most beautiful and loving people, but it's not for me. He said he doesn't consider himself in anymore and desires genuine truth, not just the I believe it kind of truth. He writes, science keeps piercing the truth of every religion. Lots of things help people change their lives, not just one version of God. Got so much more to say, but for me, I'm keeping it real. Unfollow if you want. I've never been about living my life for others. Christianity just seems like another kind of religion at this point. I could go on, but I won't. Love and forgive, absolutely. Be kind, absolutely. Be generous and do good to others, absolutely. Some things are good no matter what you believe. Let the rain fall, the sun will come up tomorrow. All right, so this created, needless to say, a few waves. Did you guys all see that Instagram post, or at least see it referenced?
Yep.
I saw the reference. I don't follow him, so it didn't actually show up in my feed. But.
Yeah, I don't either, but people I do follow were commenting on it. And then Andy sent an article from the Christian Post, which I don't know. I didn't know we had a Christian Post, but evidently we do.
I love that old school name.
The Christian Post?
Yes.
Yes.
It's like, you know what? You have relevant. We're the Post. I like it. We don't need to be relevant. We deliver on horseback. I like it.
Exactly.
Right. And the name might be too telling for the tone of the article too. But it's
yes. So Andy, why don't you summarize? So the article is called "Joshua Harris Made the Right Decision. Here's Why." Okay.
See, naturally, when a guy leaves his faith and a Christian magazine or publication chimes in and says, like, he made the right decision, I gotta read that.
I know.
Right? It's clickbait all day long. Yeah. So it's a pretty interesting response. It's definitely packed in an ideology that. But this is the thing that stood out to me. Like, I guess we kind of need to. I don't have it up here. I have it. I didn't bring up.
I have
okay,
it if you want.
So maybe can you quickly summarize what Joshua Harris said in regards to his leaving, if you want?
I have it too.
Can you just bullet point that since you have it in front of you?
Oh, because it was about Joshua Harris. Oh, it wasn't about Marty.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Do you want me to?
It wasn't about Marty. It was about Joshua Harris. And but it's like talking about. Obviously, we're going to talk about how Marty, shared what's going on. With also how Joshua shared what's going on, because those were different, in the way.
Bonnie, do you have Joshua's post up?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead and read that one, and then I can comment on the article or read bits of the article.
Okay. He said, "My heart is full of gratitude. I wish you could all see the messages people sent me after the announcement of my divorce." So he announced he was divorced or getting a divorce, and then he came out with this one. They are expressions of love, though they are saddened or even strongly disapprove of my decision. I am learning that no group has the market cornered on grace. This week, I've received grace from Christians, atheists, evangelicals, ex-evangelicals, straight people, LGBTQ people, and everyone in between. Of course, there has also been strong words of rebuke from religious people. While not always pleasant, I know they are seeking to love me. There have also been spiteful, hateful comments that angered and hurt me. The information that was left out of our announcement is that I have undergone a massive shift in regard to my faith in Jesus. The popular phrase for this is deconstruction, but the biblical phrase is falling away. By all the measurements that I have for defining a Christian, I am not a Christian. Many people tell me that there is a different way to practice faith, and I want to remain open to this, but I'm not there right now. Martin Luther said that the entire life of believers should be repentance. There's beauty in that sentiment regardless of your view of God. I have lived in repentance for the past several years, repenting of my self-righteousness, my fear-based approach to life, the teaching of my books, my views of women in the church, and my approach to parenting, to name a few. But I specifically want to add this to the list now. To the LGBTQ plus community, I want to say that I'm sorry for the views that I taught in my books and as a pastor regarding sexuality. I regret standing against marriage equality, for not affirming you and your place in the church, and for any ways that my writing and speaking contributed to a culture of exclusion and bigotry. I hope that you can forgive me. To my Christian friends, I'm grateful for your prayers. Don't take it personally if I don't immediately return calls. I can't join in your mourning. I don't view this moment negatively. I feel very much alive and awake and surprisingly hopeful. I believe with my sister Julian that, quote, all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well.
Boom.
All right, so can I jump in with the Christian Post article here?
Yes.
Okay. So then I'll pull a paragraph here. So the reason I commend Harris in how he's handling his departure, as I mentioned in my last article, a warning against progressive Christianity. The progressive church is full of those who made the same journey as Harris. The main difference between Harris and the progressive Christian is one denounced God and left the faith. The other molded God into the God they wanted, thus making an idol. For example, Harris struggled with how Scripture taught on homosexuality. He has since renounced his opposition towards the union and has made steps of amends with the LGBTQ plus community. He did not try to manipulate the Scripture as Rob Bell's or Jen Hatmakers of the world. He simply didn't agree. Instead of trying to change the Bible, he walked away. This approach is the appropriate response. For Harris's sake, this is the healthiest way to go about leaving the faith. For example, if Harris decided to embrace a more progressive view of Christianity, he would become intertwined with it. The false belief would slowly rot his mind, morals, and take him slowly further from God. He would then have to walk through a theological maze back to God to undo the lie of the progressive doctrine. On the other hand, completely rejecting the faith leaves him just on the other side of belief. So we can start with that.
Yeah.
The healthiest way to leave your faith. That comment. Like, that's just crazy to me. Like, oh, let's talk about healthy ways to leave your faith. It's just the thing that struck me was the jab at, Rob Bell and Jen Hatmakers of the world of just the accusation of, well, they're just trying to change Scripture to make it say what they want it to say, so that way the others that they love have a place in the kingdom. We could kind of probably sum it up to that. I mean, the majority of what we've learned from Rob, and even with talking with him, it's like he's working as hard as he can to try to understand, I think, what God and Jesus is doing amidst a lot of other things, to then it's like what I'm hearing in this article is that if you want to return to a hard set of system beliefs, you just have to choose to disagree with them. So then when you come back, it's because you realized, oh, I was just wrong and the previous set was actually correct. And that's not the story at all for people who are kind of in deconstruction and then even reconstruction back. I mean, if anything, like my own story of reconstruction was to come back and actually be more flexible with the systematic form that's there and realize, like, this doesn't say it all, but it's not compromising, my journey with Jesus. I think that's interesting, even what Joshua said, though, how deconstruction language is in the Bible called falling away. And for me, it's like but for me, it's like I didn't, when I was in deconstruction in my 20s, I wasn't falling away. Like, I was like, my relationship with Jesus was completely intact. It was my struggle with, how, we were, chasing after Jesus and living a life after Jesus. It was more of like the church form and establishment that I had to kind of be like, something is busted here and it just doesn't work. Like, Jesus continued to make sense. It was just that it's kind of what, I mean, I can't even relate to what Marty's saying with Marty Sampson, because I feel like obviously all the comments of like, no one's talking about it. It's like, where do you live?
Well,
like everyone's talking about it.
I think both Marty and Josh, like the stuff that they're saying, and then this Christian Post article, exactly what you're saying is in their world. that's what it's called. And in their world, no one's talking
Right.
about it. But I think it should bring to light that there's a big marriage that we have here about like this box that we think systematically, like you're saying, people should fit in. And this means you're a Christian and it has to look like this. Like even for that guy that wrote that Christian Post article to go, oh, well, if he does this, he's going to go down this path and that journey and do this and do that. Like there's this obvious marriage of like, this is what being a Christian means from not only what you believe, but how you approach your faith or don't approach your faith. And so for Marty to say no one's talking about it is an obvious glare to going, well, maybe in your circles, but there's actually a bigger community where people are talking about it.
Well,
Right.
And all three, both announcements and the article, seem to be operating from the assumption that leaving fundamentalist evangelicalism is leaving Christianity. And that's
Right.
the big lie that we've had to repudiate over the course of our growing up in the faith, has been that it was taught to us as an all or nothing system. And you had to believe every single part of it. And if one part fell, the whole thing fell.
Right.
This is what Rob referred to as brickianity back in Velvet Elvis. And he gave the example of a trampoline, where if you lose one of the springs, you're still jumping. There's still something there. There's still a foundation. And even though his journey's taken some interesting turns, I think that image actually spoke prophetically to a lot of what we're seeing. Because I would look at Josh and say, well, yeah, the form of Christianity that you were in had to be unbelievably suffocating. He'd painted himself into a corner. There was no way in his small Calvinistic complementarian box that you could actually have some of these questions. So he had to just flush the whole thing out.
And before he even grew up, I mean, he was 21.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. Why? Who appoints themselves thought leaders? I'm just done. I'm over it. Like, where are the old people? I want the old people back, because talk to me about the guy that's been married for 50 years to a woman who isn't available sexually because she is disabled, and he has to care for her as he would an infant. And yet he's been, those are the people I'm interested in hearing their views of sexuality on, right? I'm just done with hey, you're 25 and cool, sweet. I'd love to hear marriage advice from you. I'm sick of hearing marital advice. And the irony is, if I was doing this, so I'm yelling at me, but I'm sick of hearing marital advice for people who've been married like under 5 years. You don't know freaking anything about what you're doing.
It's kind of a good rule of thumb, like in general, because he not only hadn't been married, but also never had sex, also never kissed anyone. Like, those should have been red flags. But look at the publishing industry, because this tells us too, and even the music industry for both of these people 10 years ago as to what it is now in the Christian sector. Like, it was seriously all about like going to Lighthouse, and you were an author and you had these names and these tours and these things, and it was so wrapped up, and we're not there anymore. That's not what it's like anymore.
No. And I'm guilty. See, the thing I've always got to wrestle with is I'm guilty of all of this, right? I've done that. I was the punk who thought he knew what was going on, and so I'm there, but I'm just seeing the way Christianity is presented as this airtight, all-in-one system. And I'm thinking, okay, so the Christian Post article guy makes that assumption. And so his point is, well, you can't reject part of the system. You need to reject all of it, or you'll never come back. And if you come back, you have to come back to all of it in order to properly come back. Does that make sense, Bonnie? You're looking all around.
I'm just irritated about, that's exactly right. I'm irritated of the privilege and entitlement that is so wrapped up in that line of thinking.
Oh, yeah. He goes on to say, I believe Joshua Harris stands closer to returning to God than a progressive Christian. Like, as I mentioned earlier, progressive will have to deconstruct what they come to believe, walking a hard road back home. All the while, Harris is under no pretense that the God endorses liberal doctrine. It's more so for him, he does not agree with or believe in the God of the Bible, thus he's leaving. Perhaps he will one day see that God is good and is sovereign in return. Right. Like, it's just, like, the parameters for what it means to return is, like, it's wrapped up in, like, a very boring and thin view of the prodigal son story. You know, that it's like, okay, you realize the mess that you're in, just go ahead and come back home. I love you anyway. You know what I mean? That's all it is, rather than realizing how
come home means come
back to what I'm saying you
come
should
back
come
to
back
my
to.
way
the
of
same
thinking.
system.
Yes, the same system. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you spent enough time reading about, you know, for lack of other, you know, terms, because the guy's obviously making it a progressive versus, you know, conservative kind of view. Which is so dumb. But like when you actually like hear from those who are kind of like gleaning from, you know, progressive voices, you end up finding that some of these people have become the most compassionate, most graceful, most nuanced, like, and fantastic people who are seeing God in more color and bigger than they ever saw him before. You know, I mean, so many people that I'm seeing are like, I found God when I left all of this. You know, I mean, it's just kind of like, well, that's interesting. It doesn't sound like, you know, Christian progression naturally leads you away from God. The entire day of Christian progression was realizing culture has to change because God is doing something and this other form isn't working. You know,
we need a new
isn't
construct. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's just the core of progressive Christianity, is realizing that there's something wrong with the construct and we need to start asking these bigger questions and work with this. It's not an intentional journey away from God.
I feel like, you know, and Marty said this so well. I mean, those are all the huge questions: hell and evil, and you know, the so few miracles and all of that stuff. But I feel like, okay, so if we're in, and this was probably true for Joshua too, if we're in a version of Christianity that says you can't ask questions, then it seems like you really need to get out of that, like, entirely, right? Because Jesus wasn't like that. Paul wasn't like that. Jesus was incredibly curious. And I know a lot of our audience is like, well, yeah, that's no duh. But there are always a few people that I think need to be reminded, like in a situation like this, and that I'm not saying that Joshua or Marty would have kept their faith had they been given permission to ask questions. But
Right.
it wouldn't have been the same journey, and they wouldn't have left it the same way had they been given permission along the way to have some of this real deep, hardcore doubt. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Yes, I agree. I'm kind of wondering, like, if we're really going to believe them when they say, like, we left. I think even that jargon is weird. Like, to me,
Right.
they're just in process. Do you know what I mean? I think they think they have to say that because we're in this weird culture where we announce things and, like, write letters and, like, do mantras out loud that, like, declare stuff. But I think they're just in process. And I think they've left what they know to be their small box. But I wouldn't necessarily, nothing in there reads glaringly like I'm an atheist. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I
Well,
agree
Marty
with that.
even
I think
didn't he come out after that and he deleted the first post and had so much feedback that he came back with another one and said, like, I'm not fully renouncing my faith is just on really shaky ground right now.
Well, and like,
Yeah.
I'm just, well, and that's the other thing. Like, since when, like you're saying, Mike, since when is questioning and having space and going, what does this mean and why is it important? Like, why do we have to associate that with shaky ground?
Right, because well, again, it's because he's coming from a structure that is built upon its own stability. Like it only works if it's stable. You know, it's like it can't. So that's his own like comparison of like where he is in the form. You know, it's like it's shaky if I'm here, but it's like but there's actually, when you realize there's literally thousands and thousands of people that are in your same boat, suddenly you're like, oh, I'm not. It's not shaky. I just stepped to a different form. You know, of
That's
process.
it.
Right.
And
That's it. And
you know,
yeah, go ahead.
And so, but I think, like, you know, with even the notion, because I think we'll get to talk about this, but I've been sitting in that, like, kind of like wrestling with, like, okay, all right, so now people are publicly announcing more things about these things, and it's just, they feel so arbitrary, and, you know, but I think there's something interesting to think about the fact that, okay, because, you know, Dave Bazan, you know, went through this with Pedro the Lion, like he, for years, and was writing records as someone who actually wasn't believing anymore. And his Christian fandom was still following it, not really realizing that it's like this guy actually doesn't believe what he's writing. So there was, like, you know, a couple years of records in which it was like he went back and kind of confessed, like, you know, I was kind of already out by this time, like in my thinking and my way of doing all this stuff. And at the time, we didn't have social media. There was no big announcements that I'm leaving my faith or I'm going through these things.
Right.
I think his journey is probably one that we'd all be like, this is the more interesting and kind of nuanced way of doing this. But the platforms weren't there to make those big announcements. I wonder if at that time he would have. But in this case, it's like Marty has this massive public legacy about who he is. Joshua Harris, I think Joshua's need to probably publicly say something is important only because of what he was influencing is so compromised to how he sees the world now. Like, I feel like he has to say something. It's like, I need people to know, like, I don't think this. I don't
Well,
think
You guys
I
watched
think-
the documentary?
Yeah, I watched it. And
'Cause you get to see,
yeah.
I feel like you see a lot of that process leading up to these announcements in there.
What,
Well,
what
and
did
it
you
is
What did
true,
you see?
too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no,
Bonnie.
I was just gonna say it is true too. He influenced, but I think he really shaped it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think like even though there was a lot of people writing about the purity movement, that you see that in the documentary, his book really was the one that was like the defining thing forward. You know, so I agree. I think it does. I think it does make sense, but I don't know.
There's still the challenge. There's still the challenge of what, and this is where I also like, I'm in and I'm out on John Cooper's response. I don't know if we want to go there yet, because it kind of, I think these take us there. If you guys have more thoughts on the other stuff.
Well,
I was
Oh, go ahead. No.
whatever.
I'm
Bonnie.
talking a lot today. I'm in a bit of a mood, like a fired up mood. So feel free to interrupt
Well,
me.
your hair's straight.
I think that's it.
I mean, it's a 36-hour process, and there better
We're
be
here
a payoff.
for it.
That's
Yeah, there
exactly
better be.
right. No, I was just gonna say, is there such a thing as renouncing? Of course. Is there such a thing as falling away? Absolutely. But the last test I would use of somebody's allegiance to Jesus isn't whether they announce they are a Christian or are not one.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like in the world of PR and image management and virtue signaling, I don't I make no judgment. I'm kind of with you, Bonnie. I'm like, well, then let them publicly renounce, and then let's see what happens in 10 years, right? I mean, nobody takes the long view on this stuff, where you're just like, man, these are people who've been in this for years, and it can be an overwhelming and suffocating culture. And so for them to have to push and explode out of it so big, right? I mean, that's one theory why pastors have affairs, is that they're just looking for an eject button, and they don't want to renounce anything, but they engage in a behavior, but they won out. And that says a lot about the culture we've created. That's the part that's interesting to me. Isn't these poor guys? I mean, oh my goodness, I've been on shaky ground before. I've wanted to renounce things before. Hallelujah! I in that moment or those moments, I wasn't given a megaphone to do that. But there's no room given for them to just be members on the journey. And people in process, and you're just like, well, maybe they've fallen away, maybe not. I don't know. My one of my kids right now is just kind of like, I'm not sure I buy this. And so you're like, renouncing. Oh, wow, horrible. No, good Lord.
Like,
what do you do? What do you do? You're just like, well, yeah. Well, what are your questions? Oh, those are great questions. Those are huge questions.
Or
right?
like, sometimes I don't think that there was an arc.
Yeah.
I'm like, me
my
neither,
Lord.
really. Like,
Bonnie,
I don't know what
that's
to
ludicrous.
tell you.
We all know it's on a hillside in Turkey. Come on.
Yes.
Or I think
thought
it's
it was-
in
isn't it
the
near where Mike lives?
Midwest now. Yeah, Erie, you could go.
We
Oh,
can
it's
go
Kentucky,
visit and
baby.
ride some rides.
Oh, good Lord.
No, I agree. There isn't. Okay, my question, Erie, is, well, to all of you, but your thought just jogged this about when you saying there's no room for these guys. I want to be the person that poses this question, because I will until the day I die. Do you think that there's any part that there's such a response, like you're saying, or no space for these guys to be on a journey, like you're saying, because, and this happens to our culture too, because they are these white straight males, that the response then is heightened? Because if a woman does it, or even a person of color, or someone who's LGBTQ, you don't see the same like, oh my gosh, no, he renounced, he's all, all this stuff. It's almost like, oh, okay. And it's kind of expected. And I'm not saying that there's different standards. I'm saying that sometimes when somebody who is in leadership, whether or not they still are or have been or whatever, kind of says, oh, I'm just in process, I think that can rattle some people in a way. Yeah. And I think that's built in our culture of church, of having white straight males always be the sort of, I don't know a better way to say it, but like the spokesperson for God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked that there is something to that. Absolutely.
Because like Hatmaker, she just was in process. Oh, she's in process and whatever. But like, if a white male does it, it's like, oh my gosh, they denounce and they're blah 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 blah.
Well,
I mean,
I
if
heard
I were
a lot
you,
of
I would think
denouncing of
that's
Hatmaker.
I
heard a lot
too. And she's probably the only one though. But to your point, I think like I don't hear a lot of other women getting as much heat as she is.
Yeah. So. Oh, Rachel got it.
That's true, Rachel. Yeah.
So I heard those things.
But even then, I think it was like for her, she was in process. It was like, she's like, I'm progressive and I'm in process. Nobody is like, oh, she left the faith and she's whatever.
Right. Well, these guys are, at least Joshua said, I'm out. And then Marty's first post said, I'm out.
And then he's like, maybe I'm not out.
Right.
Well, but for Rachel, a lot of trolls went after Rachel hard. I mean, then even after her death, people came out saying all kinds of egregious things, basically being like, well, that's what happens to heretics, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, so there's definitely a hardline side of the faith that felt like, well, that's what happens when you become progressive, so it's like, while they might not have been saying like having more of the dialogue that she's renouncing her faith, they were sitting in a seat of judgment of being like, well, this is what happens when you go down this road. And it's hard because the Christian Post article seems to lean like kind of
absolutely
wade obviously in that water, and so that's where it's just like,
I'm just saying if leadership is skewed to one way, then I'm asking you the question as white men here, the two of you on this panel, it doesn't seem fair that you're not allowed the same process, if that makes sense.
Then I don't know. I'm
saying like that doesn't seem fair. You should be allowed to wonder and journey as anyone else,
Absolutely. But I think when you're so hard towards something, the way that Harris was towards purity culture and some of the Calvinist stuff, that it's a big deal. It's like Driscoll coming out and saying that everything he taught for 20 years was wrong. He didn't say it that way, but because that would require humility. But it's him, but it's him renouncing, the young, angry, reformed guys that he freaking led.
Yeah.
That they just don't have it. And so in a sense, I don't know, Bonnie. I'm just thinking that, well, these were people that were such participants in the formation of the very culture they're leaving, that you can't leave that culture without being critiqued by it. Right, that's where it really bites you, is that you've created a culture of critique, and then you leave it, and so of course you're going to get blasted by that same culture that you created. So I don't know if because so much of what we're familiar with as Christianity is white and male, that there's a double standard there now. I really don't know.
I would observe it, I guess, not being the half white male in the room, is that I think both are true from what I can see, because it's that Mike's making the point that the culture itself doesn't make room for those in the culture that leave it. I mean, that's like so obvious. And the thing is that's the predominant, faith culture in America is predominantly white. So naturally, it seems like it's the louder voice, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, of course, we don't know probably about a lot of people of color going in process and women in color in process, because they found groups in which they can do that in, and they're not publicly blasted, right? Because they actually potentially are in a place where they have that and they are being granted that permission. And I think in some ways, maybe perhaps white men who are going through this process are finding refuge in more of like, that minority bend of like, oh my gosh, like the margins accept me. And that's where they're finding it, right? And it's that yes, there is a loss of safety in this system. I mean, in my opinion, I just feel like we're just watching this thing crumble. You know, as the more like things get pointed out, that there's just like, man, the hinges are really kind of coming off what we know is like fundamental evangelism in the past 50 years in America is just like, you know, I don't know. It's kind of a what do you call it? A powder keg right now, in my opinion.
Well, and I might be totally dumb, and I might be incredibly wrong, and none of you were surprised by either of those outcomes. but I actually find this incredibly exciting and hopeful. In other words, I'm the more I read and think and wrestle with Jesus, the more I think he's kind of behind this whole thing. And I don't know. I'm so tentative on this because I haven't fully thought it through. But I'm getting to the place where I'm like, I think this is really good news. Like, I think, like, if you look at how Jesus deconstructed the Judaism of his day, that's a super interesting question, right? Because on the one hand, he was absolutely Torah observant. He knew the law inside and out, you know, could quote it and blah, blah, blah. On the other hand, he kept running afoul of the Pharisees' project. And then, I mean, the whole temple, I mean, how he critiqued it is super interesting. And so there was this quote by Errol McManus, I don't know, 20 years ago that was like, if God was willing to deconstruct the religion he started the first time, what's to say he wouldn't do it again?
Right.
And I don't know. I kind of think that
cool.
If God's judgment, like in Romans 1, is giving people over, then what he's done is he said, okay, great. Here's your white power structure. Here's your male leadership. Here's your celebrity culture. Here's your money hunger. Here's your political, wedding to political parties. And he's just allowing it to crumble because the thing is so obviously not built on him anymore that I'm finding, and I don't rejoice that anyone would leave their faith. No, of course not. But I'm not convinced they have. So that's the first thing.
Right.
But I actually think, and again, I'm sorry I'm talking too much, but I actually think that God could very well be behind the chaos that we're seeing, and that this is the inevitable fruit of a culture, a subculture that has not been built on Jesus for so long, that if people leave the subculture, they're now deconverted. That's how ridiculous it's become. Yeah. So
right.
My take is that this isn't wholly a bad thing. Like,
right.
And so I kind of want to help. I kind of want to help deconstruct it. But I'm still so compelled by Jesus, and still so compelled by the Scripture, and still so compelled by these other pieces. But I think you can just. I don't think you have to arrange it in the way that we've always been told you have to arrange it in order to really buy in. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sorry, I'm just totally riffing, but. As I'm hearing you guys talk, there's this incredibly hopeful thing in me going, well, hell yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Jesus has taken the wheel, or
your prayers have finally been answered,
or he's taking his hands off and he's going, well, guys, this is what you want, right? Mm-hmm. And our celebrity-driven consumerism. I mean, for how long have we been moaning about these things in the church? And now it's finally blowing apart. And I'm going, yes, because then we actually have to have faith in something. Then we actually have to trust something. Then we actually have to be in over our head. And maybe for once in our lives, there might be appropriate humility to the people of God that they don't actually have all the freaking answers.
Well, and thank God, like if God's love is when he intervenes and the blowing up is the intervention and the love and the great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then that's awesome. I love that. I love that take.
Well, I don't know.
You're always hopeful, Erre. I like that about you.
I don't know. I don't know that people would think that, but I'm. What are you laughing at, Stafford?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, to lace those two thoughts together, like you're right. I agree with you, Mike, too. And I think there's wonderful beauty in that. And that's been your journey and your process. But and even back to what Bonnie was saying too, with like the permission for, you know, those who have been influential in the church space for the, you know, the past like couple decades are predominantly white men, Mike being one of them. But it's like when we first started this podcast, we got tons of heat, you know, from people who are just like, oh, now you're leaving. Oh, you've gone liberal. Oh, this, oh, that. I mean, like, we got tons of heat of the same stuff that we're seeing now, just because we wanted to have the conversation.
That's right.
We weren't even renouncing anything. We just want to talk about it.
Right.
You said the word renounce.
Look at how far we've come.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, Andy Bear.
You know, so it's like we actually had to create our own space to have permission because we didn't have it.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? You said that. I was just talking last night about something. I said, you know, you try so hard, or people try so hard to get a seat at a table. And then once finally they've fought their way to it, they get there and they're like, oh, no, I'd rather just build my own table. You know? And like, that's largely what you did. Is they're like, nobody's having these conversations and no one, let's start it. Let's start our own table where it really is safe to talk about anything, and we're just going to dive in.
I hope so.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it worth talking about, you know, John's thoughts?
Yeah, why don't you want to read some, do you have that in front of you, Andy?
Yeah,
you want
to
read some?
Yeah.
I think there's some good points in here that he makes. And there's some other stuff I want to sift and sort through, but buddy, I'd love to have you summarize it and then give us some of your thoughts about his thoughts, about Josh's and Marty's thoughts.
Yes.
Thoughts
Truly.
about thoughts about thoughts.
Exactly.
Thoughts on thoughts.
That's
thoughts
all we got.
Thoughts.
That's all we got.
Right. Okay. So, you know, this is a longer one. It feels more like a rant. So I'll try to like make it sound ranty as if to embody his intensity, because his Instagram account just feels very intense. This is John Cooper. He's a singer from the band Skillet. I'm sorry.
We had Frying Pan first, but that was taken, so we went for Skillet.
I know. And it's like one thing when band names are terrible as they are, to be a Christian band name and to have an even worse name. It's just, it doesn't help your cause. So, okay, anyhow. Gosh, no one's going to take this guy seriously now. Okay. On his Instagram, he made a post that was passively responsive to Marty's, because he quotes him but doesn't reference him, which is like cowardly in my opinion. But here we go. Okay, I'm saying it because it's too important not to. What is happening in Christianity? More and more of our outspoken leaders or influencers who were once faces of the faith are falling away, and at the same time, they're being very vocal and bold about it. Shockingly, they still want to influence others as they announce that they're leaving the faith. Firstly, I never judge people outside of my faith, even if they hate religion or Christianity. I have many friends who disagree with my religion. This note is for people within Christianity. My conclusion for the church, all of us Christians, we must stop, all caps, making worship leaders and thought leaders the most influential people in Christendom. We now have a church culture that learns who God is from singers singing modern praise songs rather than from the teachings of the Word. We singers and musicians are good at communicating emotion and feeling. However, we are not always the best people to write solid Bible truth and doctrine. Sometimes we are too young, too ignorant of Scripture, too unaware, or too unconcerned about the purity of Scripture and the holiness of God. The holiness of God we are singing to. We must teach truth to recent disavowed church leaders. First of all, I am stunned that the seemingly most important thing for these leaders who have lost their faith is to make such a bold new stance. Basically saying, quote, I've been living and preaching boldly something for 20 years and led generations of people with my teachings, and now I no longer believe it. Therefore, I'm going to boldly and loudly tell people it was all wrong while I boldly and loudly lead people to my next truth, quote. I'm perplexed. Why be so eager to continue leading people when you clearly don't know where you are headed? Second, I hear this from several of the disavowed. Quote, no one talks about real stuff. Quote, I just read today in a renowned worship leader's statement, unnamed but obvious, how could a God of love send people to hell? No one talks about it. As if he is the first person to ask this, brother, you are not that unique. The church has wrestled with this for 1,500 years. Literally everybody talks about it. Children talk about it in Sunday school. There's like a billion books written on the topic. Just because you don't get the answer you want doesn't mean that we are unwilling to wrestle with it. We wrestle with Scripture until we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. And lastly, and most shockingly, in my opinion, as these influencers disavow their faith, they also end their statements with their new quote, new insight / new truth. That is basically a regurgitation of Jesus's words. It's truly bizarre and ironic. Oh, talk about irony. They'll say I'm disavowing my faith, but remember, love people, be generous, forgive others. Why? That is actually not human nature. No child is ever born and says, I just want to love others before loving myself. I want to turn the other cheek. I want to give my money away to others in need. Those are Bible principles taught by a prophet / priest / king of kings who wants us to live by a higher standard, which is not an earthly standard, but rather the quote, kingdom of God standard. Therefore, if Jesus is not the truth, then by preaching Jesus' teachings, you are endorsing the words of a madman, a lunatic who said, quote, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, quote. So why then would a disavowed Christian leader promote that generosity is good? How would we know what is good without Jesus' teachings? I'm amazed that so many Christians want the benefits of the kingdom of God, but with the caveat that they themselves will be the king.
Oh, boom!
It is time for the church to rediscover the preeminence of the world and to value the teachings of the word. We need to value truth over feeling, truth over emotion, and what we are seeing now is the result of the church raising up influencers who did not supremely value truth, who have led and influenced a generation. And now those disavowed leaders are proudly still leading and influencing boldly away from the truth. So he puts a Bible quote after all of this, but
oh, he puts a Bible quote.
Skillet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Didn't
like this
see
was
that
like he
coming.
obviously emailed. He screenshot an email. Like it's in like he must have been like in an email thread with like some friends, because it's like, for me, the tech savvy guy, can point this out, because there's like 7 lines of reply in the email thread. So I'd love to see the rest of this conversation.
Yeah.
But there's a green reply that includes a Bible quote and a couple other little things. But that's the gist of it. Not the gist, but I mean, that's the whole thing.
Right. And so, okay, so what's he say that's true?
In my opinion, I mean, I think what he's observing from an inside-out point of view is that the church is building influencers that have this celebrity mindset. I think the church is simply has sidecar culture's kind of growth of celebrity worship over the past, 40 years. So I think we're seeing that in just general markets of how people, garner attention towards themselves and their business and their personal brand and all of that. The church was just wrapped up in it, much like I think the church became wrapped up in its politics. I mean, we didn't, I do think some more fundamentalists probably through the 80s into the 90s kind of steer towards more if you become a big pastor, you can really sell some books and make some money. And I think it was leaning more towards prosperity. It's a little different now in the past 10 years. It's more I think there was a bit of a public kind of social theology, if you want to call it that was if you're a Christian, you better be telling people about it. And the best way to tell people about it is you better be doing it on social media. And then eventually on social media, it was not only can I say it, but now I can stylize it, and I can actually sell ideas, and I can kind of quote, now we have language for it, which is influencer and ambassador. And so there's this responsibility with our social media accounts of what we put out there, how consistent is it, blah, 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 blah. So it's I think, yes, it's true that the church needs to stop perpetuating that 100%. And we need to, I talked about that on episode 200, the church's obsession, with this celebrity intertwined culture.
Yeah.
So I agree with him on that part. I think that's a truth.
All right. What else? What else?
I think that I wrestle. I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't think I can just hardline answer what else. I wrestle with his rant on, there's no emotion, there's no feelings, none of that kind of stuff, and just say we just have to be all about the truth. I feel I've heard a lot of that in the past 10 years from pastors that I don't dig, and so that's where I'm kind of it's wrapped up in a lot of stuff, and I just think it's ironic that it's like, why did you go to social media? You're literally, it's like, that's the irony to me. Right. It's like, why? I'm like, yeah, but here you are saying you're not, that you're trying to announce to Christians this is how the faith should be, and you're not doing anything different than these guys are doing, but it's like, but you're in a band and you've got a voice, so you feel the need to do it. Like, it just, that's to me is obviously the double standard.
Yeah.
With the thing as a whole. So, but I think I agree. I agree with this jab at trying to get at the culture's kind of like support of the idea of these guys, going on to announce, their leave as some other way of garnering attention towards something. But see, I don't. And Marty responded to his post saying, like, I wasn't trying to. He's like, my influence is 4,000, and I think he was kind of jabbing at his, because John's is like 236,000 people. Huh. So I think Marty was making the point, like, I'm not an influencer. He's like, I'm just someone who has worked in the church for the better part of the past 30 years, and now I'm letting people know who follow me. Like, this has become the way that we talk about this, in a space, and so I think he was just following suit. And then, like, John, he's announcing it actually with more influence, because he's going to literally thousands and thousands percentage larger to, like, judge this guy out in public and shame him. So it's like, who's the greater influencer
Andy,
here?
he said he doesn't judge people.
No, but Marty's a Christian, or was.
Oh, that's right.
I guess it doesn't matter now. Like, right? It's like, if he's out, then why do you feel the need to say something? So I don't know.
The truth I saw in there was he said, like, hey, your questioning isn't new. I mean, yes, that for sure is true. And, the church has been wrestling with things forever. But again, to what we've been saying, a lot has to do with A, how we put information out there, and B, the construct of wrestling. I mean, Erre, you might know this better than, you for sure know this better than I would. Would you say in church history, I don't know how far back you want to go. You do you. But in church history, like,
it's too bad that people can't see everything, because the hand movements with that it really accentuated it.
By the way, I think my bold mood is the hair. It's also Andy. I think it's
Andy just brings it out.
He brings it out.
Like it. Right. I like it.
But would you say, like, has questioning always been, like, because he's like, they've been questioning these things for 1,500 years. But I would say that's taken on different forms, obviously, throughout the decades.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, like, what is the issue here? Because I get that people have been questioning that. I think that what he's saying there is true, but it does feel very different now than even 10 years ago, let alone, decades and decades ago. So I don't know. Can you speak to that at all in terms of, like, the journey and how questioning, like, it seems to me that deconstruction's like you said, Jesus and the rabbis, but why is it then so weird now?
Well, I think I don't know. I will quote Sky when he talked about an episode, whatever it was. He talked about foreground beliefs and background beliefs. Yeah. And for a long time, Christianity just operated with a set of background believings from which things were questioned. That are now, those background believings are now being called out and examined. And if you start questioning other things in light of the questioning of those background things, the foundational things, you question them entirely differently. So,
interesting.
So Sky was making the point that in a majority culture, you could make certain assumptions and have certain conversations. And even there, when I was, like, studying apologetics, I wasn't pursuing the truth. I was pursuing how to defend my point of view, because I believed it was the truth. Right. So I wasn't questioning it as much as I was looking for the best answer.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah.
And so yes, we've been talking about hell forever, of course. But that talk hasn't always been good, healthy, or true. But yeah, when you attach the hell issue now to the authority of the Bible, that feels like a much bigger issue, or the goodness of God. Whereas before, those were just things held in the background, out of which you would have questions about hell. You know what I mean? Now, hell is the symptom of the much bigger thing that is now being questioned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what
No,
feels different to me.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Because before it was okay to be like, oh, that's just something maybe we don't fully understand versus that's something I'm picking apart.
Well, notice how he even said it. He said, you study the hard questions until your mind is renewed. So the idea is, and now I may be projecting onto him, but the way I heard that was, listen, it study it until it makes sense. And if it doesn't, right, God will give you insight. And that's what having a renewed mind is, or whatever. And so his just, hey, we need more of the word. We need more of the word. We need more of the word. That's something that Josh would have said, years ago. So I'm just like, yes, but it's not that simple. It's like the Bible is provoking a lot of deconversion. And so he's not just saying, hey, just give me the word. That's not the answer. Just give me the truth. No. The world is way more complex than that sort of simplistic view. I think there's a way of approaching the Bible that you need to help people with, and there's a way of seeing the Bible you need to help people see. I mean, I think there's work to be done there. But just saying preach the word, I'm just like, I don't buy it. So I don't know. I mean, I would say questioning feels differently now, for sure, because everything seems up for grabs, and everyone seems to be believing what is right in their own eyes. And so the tension for me is, Christianity is a revealed faith. It's a faith that's been handed down from eyewitnesses to us. And so there is a part of me that's like, well, there is something to leave, right? There is a core here that you can leave and that you can disavow and that you can renounce. I think the thing we're all learning is that core is smaller than the way Christian culture's made it seem.
Well said.
And so what we're trying to do, and the reason we thought this worthy of conversation, isn't to talk about these individuals at all, but to simply say, leaving the part or the subculture that's grown up around the core doesn't mean you've left the core, and it's too early. How you treat somebody like Marty, how you treat someone like Joshua, when they're in the middle of that, will go a huge way in determining, right, whether or not the core even remains plausible or desirable for them.
Yep.
I mean, Jude puts it this way: be merciful to those who doubt. Now, I don't know the context. There seems like there was some pretty radical false teaching that was going on there. But taking that text just straight as an exhortation, you're like, well, then I think the best thing to do, like if Joshua were sitting in a room and said, hey, I'm renouncing my faith, the first thing I'd want to say is, dude, I'd love to hear about that. Not because I'm like curious in some sick way, but because, this seems worthy of conversation.
Right.
This seems worthy of understanding and empathy and process, right? It doesn't seem worthy to be used in either direction as virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Right? So here's the conservative virtue signaler saying, well, da-da-da-da-da-da, and here's the progressive. No, I mean, that's just, no. Man, God, it's just, the game is so much bigger than these stupid moments that will be forgotten 6 months from now. You know what I mean? Like, their stories are so much bigger. And I have to discipline myself because I so want to jump in on every freaking thing. And I just have to go, man, this isn't how it works with our kids. This isn't how we parent, right? So why in the world, if we who are evil know how to parent, then how much more so than Jesus? And so I'm just like, so with Hannah, I mean, she's got huge questions, and it's okay. She doesn't, I mean, we talk about the podcast and she's fine. She's just like, Dad, I'm not sure I buy it. I'm not sure it's real for me. And I'm like, the last thing I would do is say, well, babe, this is called falling away. And
this is called backsliding.
And you just need to read the Bible more. I mean, that's the last thing I would do is lay some sort of legalistic trip on her. Right? Instead, it's like, oh man, this sounds interesting. Tell me everything you're feeling and thinking, and here I am with you, and we'll walk together, and blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the church has this. I'm sorry. Go.
No. Keep going. Nope. I forgot.
The church. No, shut up. The church has this unbelievable opportunity to give a gift it has not given before, namely to not be threatened by what, like the Jesus movement is not threatened by whether Marty so-and-so publicly does what. I mean, it's not. It's
Right.
just not. And so I don't feel the need to overreact to this. The reason I wanted to have this conversation isn't because I'm worried, but rather I'm really hopeful for people like that. Like I'm sitting with a guy who is he experienced the worst of megachurch culture, a huge denomination in Southern California, and the son of its founder was just this awful thing, and the church was covering it up and blah, blah, blah. And this guy is now in this massive influential position. He's doing stuff for Lady Gaga and Jay-Z and Ben Affleck. And he's like, it's unbelievable. And I'm sitting across from this guy going, and this guy's convinced he's left the faith. And I'm just going, what are you talking about? I mean, holy cow, you are in the perfect position, right? I see God's fingerprints all over you, my man. Oh, my word. You're like the Joseph. They're in a position to do so much good. And the good that he's doing is Jesus-like good, right? I mean, it's like the kind of stuff that Jesus would be into. So all I'm saying is I just think that these sorts of announcements kind of provoke some really awful stuff by everybody. And I'm wondering if people just need to keep being reminded, hey, following Jesus is much bigger than what you were taught, right? And it's still following Jesus, but it's not the straitjacket. And so that's what this guy from Skillet seems to miss. He seems like he's still promoting the straitjacket.
He's promoting the same thing that they left.
Exactly.
You know, that's the thing. It's just like, dude, like your approach to this is why they're leaving. I mean, it's amongst a number of other things, but it's like, and that's where it's like, it's tough. Like, there is some truth to what you are realizing, but I think it's because you're also in that place. You actually kind of see it because you're a part of it. And I think that's why we can realize his, nod at like the influencer thing is a problem. Yeah, it's a problem. But at the end of the day, like to then just like flip the coin and then go after him and say like, oh, it's not on feeling, it's this, it's truth, it's that. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, this isn't, this goes back to like, the whole grace before truth conversation, right? I mean, it's just, you're sitting there throwing truth in a basket at a guy that you say you don't even know. Like, it's just what are you actually trying to accomplish? See, that's the thing. He's not trying to accomplish a connection with Marty to discuss it. He just wants to have this passive argument with this, invisible culture.
Yeah.
And not actually have a real relationship and discuss it with somebody. And that's precisely kind of the issue. Whereas you hear Joshua and Marty like saying publicly, you guys have been so gracious in my response. The DMs that we've gotten from you, like you can see they're having relational conversations with the people that are going through it. And then this guy just decides like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw a bag of hammers into this and watch what happens.
Right.
Well,
right.
I think,
yeah.
Well, because this whole thing is like reminding me is it should be a question that brings up is like individually, but also corporately, like our ability to hold pain. I think that needs to expand as a church. We had this neighbor the other day that like sirens, like fire engines and stuff. And so I ran out there. I knew he was elderly. And so I was like, is everybody okay? It turns out his wife had a stroke. And I offered to take him to the hospital because I had never seen him drive. So I've never met these people. But I know they don't know anyone. And I said, and he's like, no, I'm fine. Well, the next day we went on vacation. So yesterday we've been home for like a day. At 8 a.m, the doorbell rings. We go to the door and it's the older gentleman and he's standing there and he sees me and just starts sobbing, and says, like through his tears, he says, she didn't make it. And his wife had passed. And so later that day, we brought over flowers and food. But my son said the most interesting thing. He said, we don't know him, so how come he cried on our doorstep? And I just kind of looked at him and I said, I think he felt safe with us because we went and asked him if we needed help. And so we got into this big discussion that we should be people that are able to hold pain well because everybody's hurting. And they're going to come to us and need a place to put their pain. And if we want to be able to show them Jesus, is we have to hold pain well. And we see Jesus doing that all the time. And we don't see that in culture. And I like these stories grieve me when we lash back out because their process is painful. A lot of their things, because we've all individually have been in megachurch culture, we know that can be painful. And so what they're not sharing is their pain, but it's there. Do you know what I mean? And we have to be people that hold pain well.
You know, if you have not seen the Anderson Cooper, Stephen Colbert interview, the full thing, that I think it was last Sunday night or something, maybe last night, I don't know. But just Google it. It's 40 minutes, and Colbert says some stuff about suffering, and being a person that could hold pain well. I mean, Bonnie, your talk, your words right there made me think. I mean, about not grieving well. So he and Anderson get in this conversation about grieving, and what Colbert does. Oh, I mean, it's some of the most profound public theology I have ever seen. Whether you like him or don't like him, he says some things about suffering that I'm like, good Lord, may we all be so winsome, you know? Because you're right. Because there is such a place that we enter into the universal, like, brother and sisterhood of humanity. And so, no, that's good. All right, we're about hour 10, so we're going final thoughts. Andy.
Oh man, I mean, I'll just take Bonnie's final thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Bonnie just mic dropped the whole thing.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, if there's like, okay, so what do we learn from this? All right, that's good enough. That's a lifetime of reconditioning right there.
Yeah. Hold pain.
I'll take it. Seriously, that's it, man.
Okay. Tim?
I totally agree. I wrote down a bunch of questions that I was going to try to ask you guys to wrap things up, and then you guys hit all of them pretty much. So I think you guys self-wrapped.
We're wrapped.
Wow.
I need to straighten my hair every week. Maybe it's because there's not so much for the thoughts that filter through. It's like a
right. See, I wasn't sure if you guys were ready for the firepower today. I mean, it took 2 people to replace me leaving the show, so I didn't know what was going to happen once I came back on.
I mean, hey, math don't lie.
well deserved. Okay.
Math don't lie. Have you been sitting on that one, though? I would imagine you've sat on that one, Andy. That's pretty good.
I thought of it this morning. I did think of it this morning coming in.
That's a pretty good one.
I was waiting for the right moment.
That was excellent. Well, brothers and sisters, listen. Hopefully, our goal in these things is that somehow we not only that we grow, but that we're trying to model a certain way of being in the world. And I love how Bonnie says that. And, you know, our hope always is that the beauty of Jesus comes shining through somewhere along the line. So, thank you as always for listening, and thank you for putting up with us. And, you know, on behalf of Bonnie's straight hair, Andy's 3.5 children, and Tim's chest hair, which is shockingly like a lot. I want to say goodbye and have a great day. See ya.